Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we'll be talking about how to make catchy melodies just like the pros. Today my camera actually has some technical difficulties, so here we are with the webcam camera. But yeah, let's go ahead and check out some of the previews. Alright, so for the first preview we have a Mitis melody remake. This is actually a requested topic that one of my patrons requested to look over some of Mitis's melodies and how he creates them. So this will be the first preview. Alright, so for the second preview, this is a track that I'm working on, although quite rough, but you'll still get like the basic idea of the melody.
Feel it deeper, deeper than the ocean. I keep falling into nothing, I keep falling. Baby, will you catch me?
Alright, and this is the third preview.
We only speak to
Alright, so as always, if you want to get the project files, you're welcome to check out my Patreon. I'll be uploading the Mitis Melody Remake project file as well as the samples from preview 3, such as like the chops, guitar samples, and I've already included like extra guitar samples from a future melody sample pack that I have coming down the line. And for the preview 2, I probably won't include that till maybe later since I'm still working on that track. But yeah, if you're interested in supporting my Patreon, I'll leave the link in the description below. Alright, so for the first thing we're going to be talking about is melody structure, because this is actually something that I struggled with a lot, especially when I first started out. And just also keep in mind that these structures are more of like a good starting point, but you're also welcome to kind of like go wherever you want to take the structure. But yeah, just looking at Mitis's melody structure, basically we kind of have like a structure here, starting with this area, and then we have a turnaround here, and then we have the same A section repeating, but then another turnaround here. So yeah, basically with this structure, you have like the hook here, for example, and then you have a turnaround like every 4 bars. And then you have the same hook, but then have a different turnaround at another 4 bars. I've actually heard some songs like do the same like turnaround, but at the same time, like they're able to add variation because like they had the vocal, you know, the ending phrase of the vocal at the end of the 8 bars. And the idea behind having the different turnarounds is basically just adding more, you know, variation to keep the listener interested. Because sometimes, you know, if you keep repeating the same thing, the listener may lose some interest. So it's always good to kind of like change up the last turnarounds for some more variation, basically. So yeah, that's basically that for this structure. And then the next structure we're going to reference to is one of my tracks. Very similar idea, but the turnarounds happen every 2 bars rather than every 4 bars. All right, and here's the track. So yeah, basically, as you may have heard, basically the hook is like need you, need you, need you, and then you have the turnaround at like close to the end of the 2 bars, or going to the third saying need you, close, and then need you, the same hook again, but then you have a different turnaround. So yeah, that's basically the different turnaround there. And the reason why we basically have a turnaround every 2 bars or at the end of every 2 bars instead of every 4 is because this hook is more repetitive. So like if we were basically repeating need you, need you, need you, need you for like almost 4 bars straight, it might get a little uninteresting for the listener. So that's the reason why we have the turnaround here every 2 bars rather than every 4 bars, unlike the Mitis Melody Remake. And you know, again, it's just like literally all context of what you have in your melody and kind of like where you want to take it for the certain structure that you may want for your track. And then lastly, the last structure I kind of wanted to touch on is kind of like this, you know, call and response structure. So this is basically, again, the melody. So basically we have the first like call, which is basically the vocal chop here. And then you have the response, which is basically the guitar. And the reason why we added the guitar, because, you know, if we just kind of like left the vocal chop by itself, it might, like, melodically it sounds pleasing and it already works, but to kind of like keep the listener interested even more, because we have some like gaps there basically, is we're basically filling it with the guitar. It doesn't even have to be guitar. It could even be like, you know, if it's in the drop, for example, some type of like fills, you know, whatever. Basically just kind of like filling that space to kind of keep that interest going, basically, because this is kind of what it sounded like, you know, by itself without the guitar. Like melodically, the pitch sounds great. It's just kind of like, you know, again, to add that extra interest, we have those guitars. All right, so let's go ahead and like look into writing the melodies itself and kind of like deconstructing, you know, what Mitis did. So I'm basically just gonna take a look at it, into it, like kind of, you know, breaking down the notes and how they're working with each chord. My theory is not the greatest, so you might, if you do want to like to have the correct terms, I would say definitely do your research on it. But even though I'm kind of like looking at the notes in terms of like, you know, where it is in the chords and stuff, I don't really do this when I write my melodies. It just so happens like the melodies that I write just, you know, happen to end up as like a 9th or a 7th, 11th, 13th possibly, or suspended basically. But I don't like do this in my melody writing. It's just basically a way of looking at it so you can kind of understand it in a more theory-based or logical way, basically. So yeah. So this is in the key of C, and I'm going to try to break it down as easy as possible so that way like you can kind of understand what's going on here, even if you have like no knowledge of theory whatsoever. So first off, we have like the A chord. So these are the chords here. So A being you know, the root of the A chord, and E being the 5th of the A chord. The 5th because if you're starting with the A chord, that's not going to be number 1 as A of the root note. So 1, and then you have 2, 3, which is a C, 4, and then 5. So basically the 1 and 5 of the A chord is A and E. And then basically what Mitis is doing here is he's doing, you know, it's always, you might have even already seen it in my other previous videos, it's always going to be safe, you know, assuming that you're just sticking with like, you know, the major, minor, relative minor scale, and you're not like doing some super advanced scales and stuff. The 1 and 5 of the key, so C and G would be the 1 and 5 of the key, because C, this is the key of C major, so the 1 of C major is C, and if we count up 5 times, so C, D, E, F, which is 4, and then G, 5. So that's going to be the 1 and 5 of the key. The other one we're talking about is just the chord itself. So yeah, you know, if you do the 1 and 5 of the key, it's going to always be a safe bet, you know, more or less, pretty much. I haven't really heard it sound weird at all through every chord that I've created using the 1 and 5 technique. So pretty much I would say that the 1 and 5 is going to be a safe bet to start your melodies, and we'll definitely dive into like creating a melody with that method as well. But yeah, basically Mitis is doing the 1 and 5 of the key, so C and G, and the G of the A chord is like a 9th. So if we count up, so like A again in the A chord is being the 1, 2 B, 3 C, 4, 5 is E, 6 is F, and then 7. Oh, oops, it's not the 9th. That would be the 7th, and I think the B is the 9th. So yeah, he's basically doing the 7th chord, the 7th of the A chord, which is why it sounds really nice. And then, you know, I think, I'm not too sure how to explain this in a theory-wise, but it's always also nice to add some passing notes as well, to kind of like lead up to, you know, your next melody. Because sometimes, like even Nurko does this in his more like sustained lead melodies, where it's like, you know, he has like one note sustained playing out, and then he'll kind of like almost add some passing notes that kind of like step up to the next note, especially after like the first 8 bars, and then he kind of like, you know, changes the melody for some extra variation, the sustain note like goes higher, and he'll kind of like add some extra passing notes to kind of step up to that melody. So I think that's what Mitis is doing here. I could be completely wrong too, because honestly I have no idea what Mitis is doing. But one thing that I do know that he's doing is the way he's writing his melodies is he's kind of finding that sweet spot for the notes that kind of like fit into the chord. And that's literally pretty much like the method that I'll be showing you throughout this whole entire video and what I do. But yeah, next up, we have the F and the C. The F, just playing on the F chord, is the 1, so that's why that works there. And then he's playing the C and G again, which is basically just the 5th of the C chord, because this is the C chord here, C, G, so the G being the 5th of the chord. And the next chord is a G right here, G and D. And then now you're playing suspended. I think this is called suspended if I'm doing this correctly. Suspended 2. So basically a G, if the G chord is 1, and, it's actually suspended 4, sorry. So yeah, G, 1, A, 2, 3, B, and then C. So suspended 4, because counting up 4. I honestly don't know the reason behind that. I think that's what it's called from what I've learned from like Caslo or Nat from Caslo. So yeah, that's also the reason why that gives that feel, because I even use a suspended chord here too, which gives that like dissonance that you can just hear right there. So that's basically what he's doing there. He's going to D, which is the 3rd in the G, and then suspended, and this is basically just to add dissonance. Yeah, and that's the thing with these turnarounds too. A tip from on my decks that I got is like taking it as like exotic as possible. Exotic meaning like using those advanced chords again. And here he's using the suspended chord, which is a advanced chord, more advanced chord. So hence why it's gives that sound. Again, I don't even think about it too much, when I'm making my melodies. It's just kind of like going with my ear. And if like this theory is like super confusing and stuff, don't worry about the theory about too much. Just kind of like go where you want to take it. And I think that's really the spot where it's going to be at. And yeah, the same thing basically here. He's doing the same thing because these are the same chords. Just changing it up, basically using a very similar concept once again with this turnaround. And then even the same thing with the Mitis Twitch ID. He literally does the same exact thing, and I do the same thing. And Nat is actually the guy that upgraded my melody writing so much. And it's going to be the same exact process I just showed you. I'm just going to move everything to C to make it easier. So yeah, basically here we have the F chord being the first chord, and then in the F chord here, Mitis is basically doing the D and E. So this is basically just to add dissonance again. And notice Mitis loves doing this. It's kind of like, gives it extra like tension or whatever. But basically the E in the F chord, I think that should be the 7th. I'll double check. So yeah, so F, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so that's the E is the 7th. So again, that's what gives it that kind of like really pleasing to the ear sound. And then you have the C, B, and G, which again doing the same concept because the next chord is the G chord. Here we go, G. Yep, so G and D. And again, he's doing the suspended with the C and B. The B is to add the tension again, C and then G. And once again, that's the 1 and 5. So it's a very safe note to do. But that's once again why it gives that like certain sound. And just in case that you haven't heard the melody already, I'll play it just in case. Yeah, and basically you get the basic idea, but I'll just debunk this again just in case. Same idea here, E, D, C. The next chord should be like A. Yeah, that's an A chord right there. And yeah, he's basically doing the D and E, rubbing for the tension, but the E of the A chord is basically just the 3. Oh, sorry, that's the 5, my bad. The 3 would be the C. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So yeah, and then the last chord is a C, and he's basically just playing the E, G, G, which is basically the 3 of the C is E, and the G is the 5. And yeah, it's the same concept, and once you like get that like down, that like your ear down to like hearing again what like the notes that fit well to you, because melodies are always subjective. And you know, there's just gonna be some people that just don't like your melodies, even if you like it. That's just gonna how it's gonna be. You know, people will like what they like. It's all good. In the name of T-Pain.
If you like it, there's somebody else. There's at least 12 other people. Out of 7 billion, people, there has to be somebody else that likes the shit that you like. If you like it a lot, out of 7 billion people, there has to be somebody else that likes it.
But yeah, this is another tip that I learned from Nat, which I thought was really good. Is basically when you're choosing your melodies, you can either, and you're welcome to like mix and match. It doesn't always have to be this way, but like you can either kind of have your melodies in terms of pitch go upwards, and like a lot of like the movies, for example, like when it hits the climax, climbs up, has the melodies like kind of move up this way. Or in a lot of like pop songs and like, you know, songs in our genre, they kind of have like a melody that goes downward. And that's downwards in pitch. So, and that's a really good way to kind of like choose your notes too when you're making your melodies. Again, like it doesn't always have to be this way. You're welcome to mix and match. There's some songs that like, you know, do a V shape, for example. It's just a good starting point, and then you're welcome to kind of like go wherever you want to go. But yeah, that's basically like kind of how we chose the notes in both the vocal chops. But even though they're vocal chops, like the same concepts still apply basically. So the way that this vocal chop was created is basically like just kind of find notes that you like, you know, with the chords playing, and then just cutting it up. If you want to go like dive deeper into how to create vocal chops, I already have a video on my YouTube. You're welcome to check that out as well. I'll leave a link in the description below. So yeah, this was the first one that we chose right here. And sometimes it's good just to like have the piano in the background just so you can kind of like get a vibe going. You don't always have to have the piano either, but just something that I prefer to do nowadays. You listen again, like what would sound good. Yep, and then basically doing the same thing again. But yeah, we have you know, kind of like the similar concepts, a little bit of a different structure as you can see. But let's just, you know, for the sake of example, like let's say for example where we could follow the chart and we want to go downwards, and let's just see what happens if we chose a note that was like more upwards. Yeah, so it's just gonna take this for the sake of reference. This is probably not gonna work, but like, yeah, you can already kind of see, like, it's like, you know, in my own personal opinion, like, that doesn't sound as good as the one we originally had. And this one, actually, I kind of had to, like, chop it up because the melody we wanted wasn't in these chops. So that's also another good tip that I learned from Caslow. Nat from Caslow is, like, you can, like, kind of have your hook, and then this is mainly for chops, but I'm pretty sure you can apply this to, like, just writing melodies in general. But basically, like, rather than choosing chops that you like, another method you can do is find a hook that you like, and then, you know, create a melody in your head and try to find chops that match that melody that you made. So that's literally what we did here. And it's following the same type of like graph where it's like going downwards. This is what it'd sound like if we had this one. So yeah, going downwards. And I'll kind of compare like the last melody that went higher. Yeah, so I mean, there are some cases like you can go higher, just like the preview 3. We chose the, you know, going higher. It just really depends on what you like. And yeah, it's literally the same thing that I did with this chop, going downwards, because for some reason I just like when the melodies tend to go a bit more downwards and upwards at times. That's, I guess, my own personal preference. But yeah, I just listened to the melody, or I listened to the vocal with the chords, and then just picked what I liked. Yep, that sounds nice. So that's literally what I did for the first one. And I was like, oh, that works too. So I just took the second part of that, and I just kind of like cut it up so it can basically be on time. And then I was like, oh, well, that works too. And then I took that and put that in the third one there. All right, well, that sounds good too. So I just put that there too. And like one thing I thought was like, dang, like that was just really simple. And it's okay that like you didn't really change the melody too much, you know. It's actually even better that you came up with the melody that quickly. So, and then yeah, just basically once again adding the guitar, very similar concept, you know, finding the sweet spot once again in the chords and kind of like creating a melody that you like basically. All right, so next up, we're basically going to create a melody from scratch using the 1 and 5 technique that I was talking about earlier. So here's our chord progression. It's basically the F major, just having the C and G drone throughout the whole entire thing. I've already have 2 videos on how to write emotional chords, so if you want to check those out, feel free to check those out. Once again, I'll leave the links in the description below. But yeah, it's G, playing suspended again, and then A, and then C. A minor and C major. At this point, I'm just going to say, like, guarantee, once you can pretty much start with the 1 and 5, as long as you're like, you know, not using some super complicated scale and just in like the minor, relative minor and major. Reason being, I say relative minor and major just in case that you don't know. The relative minor basically shares the same exact keys as the C major, so they're just basically interchangeable because it's the same key. So basically, to find out the relative minor, you would just kind of count 3 semitones down. So C major, and the relative minor of C major is 1, 2, 3. A minor, and so they both have white keys. So like I think definitely writing a minor probably can make things sound more sad, but I think like what's most important is just kind of like the way that you use the harmonies and the notes, and that's really going to evoke certain emotions. I think it's probably going to be the most important. Again, you know, using suspended 11th, 13th, 9th, 7th and stuff. So but yeah, let's go ahead and just start with the 1-5 and see what happens, right? I'll just do this. Again, using the same mechanics, you know, doing the 3 and suspended again. Yeah. And then doing the hook again. This is technically a kind of our quote-unquote hook, and doing something very similar again. Rather than going the B this time, just try doing the D. I think the here. Yeah, that probably should work. And we can kind of like fix this to play at the same time. We can do the same thing, but then change the turnaround again. Again, you can go exotic if you want. You can do maybe... We're going to do a few different ones here, just to give you an idea. I didn't really like that one too much. We can try this one, though. Yep, and that will definitely work too. And there you have your melody, just using the same idea, concept of 1 and 5, and going a bit more advanced in terms of the turnarounds and stuff. So this is kind of like the strategy that I started off with, and you can definitely continue to do that. I still sometimes do it, but I think another like level that I'm getting to now is kind of like using different notes, but at the same time like mixing like the 1 and 5 and 7 in. Because originally I used to start my melodies like 1, 5, 7, and just kind of like alternate between that and add like extra passing notes and stuff. Now it's kind of like flip flop, where I have different notes and just kind of spicing it up with 1, 5 and 7. So again, like I don't really think about it in that term. It's just kind of like, it just so happens to be that way. And just to kind of give you another example of like how like you can not go wrong with these like 1 and 5, 7 thing. I think this is an art melody that I heard from Said Skies. I forgot the track. It was the one with Dylan Matthew, I think. Yeah, I forgot the name of it. It was the one he did the walkthrough in the DAW. I don't even know if these are the right chords. I'm just gonna make some really quick ones. Even with like it doesn't sound perhaps as good as the previous one, but it still technically works because again, you know, you're just using the 1/5, you know. But the reason why it might not sound pleasing is just because like the way the notes are working with each chord. So you know, that's my own personal preference though. But yeah, just to kind of give you a basic idea of like how you can just do the 1/5/7 and it just works basically every time. So that's the 1 and 7 because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of the key, and then the 5. Okay, that's too fast. Like it's already working, you know. Let's change the BPM a little bit. And then you basically do the same, like a variation, so that way it's not like as repetitive, you know. And again, it's just following the chords, you know. And then again, repeat it, but then again with a turnaround. Same thing. I think it was, this is a nice turnaround too. Yeah. Oh my god, yeah, that's great. And then like you can just do a different turnaround using the same concepts again. Let's try this same thing, some type of like variation with 1, 5, 7 and 1. You can even probably change the turnaround a little bit. That might even work. That probably wouldn't be too bad either. Just give it some variation in structure a little bit. Yeah, there we go. We'll listen to the whole thing. Yeah, so don't be too afraid to deviate from the structure, especially like during the turnaround. That's where you have a little bit more flexibility because you've already established something. And one thing I forgot to mention also is like when you're writing these melodies, I've also mentioned this in my other video of writing how to write compelling melodies or ARPs and melodies in general. But basically like when you're writing these melodies, you don't want to go too crazy on the scale because that's when it's gonna be a little hard to like listen. So like you don't want like C, B, and then like, I don't know, freaking just going everywhere. You know? Yeah, it's just so hard to follow. Just kind of like want to stick to a certain like area. Just think about like you humming the melody or like a singer who sings the melody. They're not like going crazy octaves and stuff, you know? So if you can hum it out, more than likely it's gonna sound good. So yeah, I hope this video was able to help you out. Thank you so much for watching. If you're able to find this helpful or enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't yet. And also please hit the bell notification symbol so you know when my next video goes live. And also follow me on my social media. I post shorter like music production tips on there. So if you like videos like this, you'll definitely like my social media. And also join the Discord server. I'm looking to create like a like-minded community where we can all like help each other grow and give each other feedback and then stuff like that. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to join. As always, I will leave the links in the description below. Thank you so much again for watching. Until next time, much love. Peace out.